To all of my longtime subscribers, I have to apologize. You see, I've been focusing on a lot of motorcycle content of late. There's a handful of reasons as to why that I'm not going to get into because it isn't the time or place for that. But you know what? Here's another thrift store game hunting video. For any new viewers, subscribers, basically I go to thrift stores every so often, pawn shops and other random secondhand stores in search for games to add to my collection. I do, of course, like to find other random things at these places that are just simply interesting to talk about. Well, at least I think they are. Yes, so tried and true Goodwill. This one didn't have much of anything, mostly sports titles and Plants vs. Zombies. I don't know why, but I've come across this game several times now at Goodwill. They did have this beach volleyball game that I vaguely remember playing as a kid. I don't recall if it was as fun or enjoyable as Outlaw Volleyball, but it's not like it matters because it didn't have the disc. And no, this location does not hold the discs behind the counter. I remember when back in the day, these monster component cords would cost well over $30 at Best Buy. I don't even know why they were so expensive. I had HDMI cords by Monster that I couldn't tell any difference from that of the typical Amazon special. Quite a few games here. Lots of sports titles, of course, but they did have other things that were thrown in. Stuff like ATV Off-Road Fury 2, Seek and Destroy, Dead Island, and a few others. I really wish I liked those Civilization games. I have a bunch of friends that love the titles, but I could never get into them no matter how much I tried. This is absolutely off the wall. For those who don't know, I used to be a florist, and it pains me to see Goodwill charging outrageous prices for very basic vases. So as a public service announcement type thing and a tip, instead of donating them to thrift stores, call up your local florist and see if they can take your unwanted vases. Why? Well, I don't know how any other shop has done it, but whenever we would take vases in the event we would reuse that vase, we wouldn't charge more than a couple bucks for the vase compared to what it would normally cost for retail. Basically turning a $60 arrangement into a $50 one just from using that recycled vase. I couldn't film this part well since there were a couple guys hanging around me. Still, check this out. Harvest Moon Tree of Tranquility for the Wii. It was complete and in excellent condition. Never played this one, but I don't care. I'm a huge fan of Harvest Moon, always have been ever since the N64 and Game Boy days. I came back to this location a few days later, and they actually had a bunch of games here. But I was focused on whatever this was. The Wonderful 101 for the Wii U? Several other games that I already owned that I would have snapped up in a minute were here, like the Mass Effect, Call of Duty World War II, and Shadows of Mordor. I did, however, grab that special edition Call of Duty 2. This is one of the very few that I did not have. I do remember renting it from the library like 15 some odd years ago. I know, I got it, I'm getting old. Board games. There's always tons of them at Goodwill. Same with puzzles. You can come across brand new sealed ones from time to time, though it's not super common. I thought about this NHL Checkers for a hot minute. I love hockey. I played it all the time as a teenager. I think the only reason I passed on it was because I've never really been a fan of the Penguins. No offense, Pittsburgh. Jesus, this one had a ton of sealed games for whatever reason, but nothing that really stood out to me as something I absolutely had to have. Then I came across this, a Space Invaders board game. It's a recent release. It came out in 2021, which, whatever, I don't really care about that. I still think it's really cool, but it's used. What's the likelihood that it has all the pieces inside? I don't know about this. I check for everything, but the last time I tried that, I was scolded by an employee, and honestly, I don't really feel like dealing with any confrontation if it can be avoided. Alright, wow, this is the most games I've seen at this location for years. Quite a decent selection here as well. Forza 2, Battle Stations Midway, Perfect Dark Zero, Battlefield 2, which is phenomenal if you don't already know that, and an absolutely terrible one, Hour of Victory. You know, I reviewed this game a few years back, and I think I said it was one of the worst shooters I've played on that generation of consoles. Unfortunately, when you already have a large collection of games, you do run into the sad realization that you own most of everything here. You think it would bother me, but it doesn't. I get enjoyment just from coming across games like this in the wild, even though they're not really all that expensive. It's still cool to see. Oh man, I remember my father had this exact same gamepad. I could be dead wrong about it, but for some reason I recall him using it on those X-Men Legend games. We used to love those games way back in the early 2000s. My dad absolutely was a gamer in his 20s and 30s. He's a big platformer guy. Blackthorn, Metroid, Super Mario, and Lost Vikings were just a few of his favorites. God, I miss those days. I love me some half-price books. I don't go there as often as I should, really, but they always have some variety with clearance video games that have been sitting for months on end. Like this Destroy All Humans for the Xbox One. Love the games on the PS2, so you bet your ass I'm grabbing this. I also grabbed both that Monster Jam Urban Assault game for the PS2, as well as Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. Why I didn't grab some of the other games like Tekken 4, Diablo 3, Reload, and Dragon Age is a mystery that I really don't have a good explanation for. Look, another game I've reviewed, Jericho. Oh yeah, they had Red Dead there as well, but who cares? Jericho! Yeah? Yeah? No? Fine. It's become somewhat of an ongoing gag of me finding these Wii Fit boards in random places. This being no different tucked in the arts and crafts section. I have the first iPet game. I almost grabbed this until I realized I just saw this cheaper at a disc replay a few months back. But I don't know why I didn't buy it then. Croc 2? Wow. Okay, so if this was for the PS1, I would have snagged it immediately. I don't know why this game got so much hate. I thought it was totally fine. Yeah, it's no Spyro or I guess Crash, but to me, it was still fun in its own quirky way. You know what Disney movie had a terrible sequel that I really hate? Not Lady and the Tramp 2, not even Mulan 2, which, yes, it is god-awful. It's Return of Jafar. The sheer thought of this movie gives me violent diarrhea. Ah, Edward Scissorhands. I mean, it's a good movie, but Edward Watermelon Hands is without a doubt way better. Back at Half Price Books months later, the clearance section wasn't as good this time around. Definitely looks picked over, though I did grab several games and put them aside. Both the Saints Row titles and Transformers, Skate It for the Wii, and that Prince of Persia for the Wii. The only crap thing about this is that a few of these games were well scratched beyond what I'm traditionally comfortable with, so I put a few of them back. I'm a sucker for scary games. It's my favorite genre pre-PS4 and Xbox One. Obscure is not the best I've ever played, but it's still a wonderful title. $50, however, is a bit steep. Yeah, it was complete and in good shape, but this game goes for $35-ish. Priced down for the custom paint job. Yeah, as it should be. It looks like they used 6 cans of white spray paint on the thing. This is kinda cool. It's beat to hell though. It's a Waco Casino King slot machine. I want to say it's from the 70s, and it is a toy from Japan. But it doesn't work, and they still want $30 for it. Either way, it's cool to come across it. That's a bit mingin', isn't it? Looks like they shoved the joystick up their ass. Yeah, I know, the inner hipster in me is coming out, but it's an Audio-Technica. I have to walk away. I've bought a handful of these older electronic keyboards since this entire series has started. Never been that big on Casio. I've always loved the Yamaha ones I've bought so far. I maybe would have thought about this had it not have been $40. I've looked these up, and I've come across ones in excellent shape for $40 to $60 on sites like Reverb. None of them are on eBay for whatever reason. I probably would have taken the chance at $20. After all, it did come with a folding stand. At least, I hope so? $7 a pop. That's unbelievable for a Goodwill. $7 for a Madden, a Destiny, Wii Fit? Ooh, that's bad. It's been several months since I've stopped at the local disc replay. I figured I'd pay them a visit and see what's going on here. Somehow they ended up with a massive stockpile of ultra common and cheap games that they must be struggling to get rid of because they ended up pricing them at $1 or $2, hoping that someone would buy them. There are some good games in here, and it would be awesome for someone who doesn't have any of these, or I guess has the itch to play something like all of those Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six titles. War Games DEF CON 1. Wow. I have a lot of memories with this game. Playing it at my cousin's house 20 some odd years ago, having a blast, my uncle sitting in the chair cheering us on. I can't not get this. It means far too much for me. It's such a shame finding games you would have bought if they had the original case and the artwork for them. I can handle them not having the manual, that's fine, but the garbage reprinted cover using a $50 Epson, I can't do it. I can't force myself to buy it. I do already have this game, but man, I cannot express just how much I love Guilty Gear and that style of fighting game. Games like Skullgirls, BlazBlue, Arcana Hearts, Marvel vs. Capcom. I just love these style of fighting games so much. Which then brings us to BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle for $13. I don't have this, but I guess I do now. There were a few others that I grabbed, Final Fantasy Type O, Lichdom, And whatever this fighting game is that looks oddly familiar for some reason. I've heard a ton of negative things about Type O, but people also hate on Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10 too, which just so happen to be some of my favorites. So I have to take that negativity with a grain of salt. Hey, I got this complete, but I definitely do not have this collector's edition, and unless I come across it in the wild, I most likely never will. $250. It's about right. Well, there we have it for the first video of 2024, and it just so happens to be a thrift store game hunting episode. I know I promised to make more of these more frequently, and yeah, I've been slipping for numerous reasons, focusing on other projects, work, my health, and so on. That is 100% my fault, and going forward, I'm going to try my absolute best to better supply these videos, but at the same time, not bang them out to where it's just like rehashing the same stuff over and over again. Anyway, I wish I snagged up more games to add to the collection, but it's not a complaint really when the games I did grab I'm super happy about. Yeah, none of them are like ultra rare or anything high expensive or anything like that, but it doesn't matter to me because any new edition is awesome in its own right. So with that, here's a look at what I came home with, the prices and all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, everyone, take care.